Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how quickly people judge a woman who chooses to live alone? It's almost like society has this script that if she's not attached to a man, something must be wrong. But here's the shocking truth. Women living solo aren't lonely. They're rewriting the rules of independence, freedom, and strength. And what I'm about to share may flip everything you thought you knew on its head. When people hear the phrase living alone, their minds immediately jump to isolation, to silence, to something that feels incomplete. But independence is not isolation. Independence is the ability to stand on your own 2 feet and know you can carry your own weight. It's not about pushing people away or avoiding connection. It's about owning your space, your time, and your decisions without apology. When a woman chooses to live alone, it isn't a sign of weakness or that she couldn't find someone. It's actually the opposite. It's proof that she isn't willing to settle for less than she deserves. She knows she can survive, thrive, and build a life she's proud of without depending on anyone else to hold it together. That choice doesn't close the door on love, friendships, or community. It simply says, I don't need to be rescued. I don't need validation to prove my worth. I've got this. Think about the daily decisions that come with living solo. Every bill, every meal, every plan, every late night moment of doubt, it all falls on one set of shoulders. There's no backup plan waiting in the next room. And because of that, there's a strength that develops, one that you don't get when you can lean too easily on someone else to carry the load. It's a quiet confidence that says, if I can handle my own life, I can handle anything else that comes my way. Here's the real shift most people don't talk about. Independence creates clarity. When a woman is alone in her own space, she hears her own voice without all the noise. She discovers what she actually likes, what she actually wants, without compromise, without the constant tug of war of trying to make everyone else comfortable. That kind of clarity is rare and it's powerful because once you truly know yourself, you stop accepting roles, relationships, and responsibilities that don't fit you. And let's be real, independence isn't always glamorous. There are nights when the silence feels heavier than expected, when doubts creep in, when the comfort of having someone else there seems tempting. But here's the difference. Those moments build resilience instead of reliance. Each time she pushes through, she learns that solitude isn't her enemy, it's her teacher. It teaches patience, resourcefulness, and most importantly, it teaches her to trust herself. Society often paints independence as lonely, but what it really is liberating. Imagine waking up every morning and realizing you don't have to ask permission to make a decision. You don't have to negotiate over how the weekend will be spent. You don't have to shrink yourself to fit inside someone else's expectations. That freedom isn't empty. It's full. It's full of opportunities, full of personal growth, full of the kind of self-respect that makes settling impossible. And here's what happens when independence is embraced. Confidence spills into every other part of life. Career decisions are no longer about fear, but about possibility. Friendships are chosen intentionally, not out of obligation. Relationships, when they come, are partnerships, not lifelines. Because when you know you can stand on your own, you no longer cling to people to keep you upright. You invite them to walk beside you. That difference changes everything. So independence isn't a punishment or a sentence. It's a gift. It's a season of building a foundation so strong that no storm can shake it. And that foundation, once set, carries over whether she chooses to remain solo or not. Living alone isn't about being without. It's about being enough. That's the shocking truth most people miss. Independence is not isolation. It's strength disguised as solitude. Freedom is one of those words we toss around all the time, but when you strip it down, real freedom is rare. It's not about just doing whatever you want in the moment. It's about designing life on your own terms without apology. And that's exactly what happens when a woman chooses to live alone. She gets to call the shots, not because someone gave her permission, but because she decided she's worthy of building a life that reflects her. Think about how often people compromise their day-to-day existence just to fit someone else's routine. The little things add up. What time dinner is, what shows get watched, how the weekend is spent. Those compromises may seem small, but over time they shape who you become. And when you're living alone, those decisions come back into your hands. You decide what peace looks like, what chaos you allow, what energy you let through your front door. That level of freedom isn't about selfishness. It's about alignment. There's something powerful about walking into a home and knowing every detail is yours. The colors on the walls, the way the furniture sits, the smell that lingers in the air, it all mirrors your identity. That's not decoration. That's self-expression. And it does something deep inside you when your environment reflects who you are, not who you're trying to accommodate. That freedom creates a sense of ownership that seeps into every other area of life. Now, it's easy to assume freedom is all fun and no responsibility, but the truth is freedom requires discipline. When you have no one else to answer to, the accountability falls squarely on your shoulders. And that's the beauty of it. Because once you realize you can structure your days, manage your space, and build habits that serve you without external pressure, you unlock a kind of self-control that many people never experience. Freedom doesn't mean chaos. It means choosing what matters to you and letting the rest go. And here's where it gets really interesting. Freedom breeds creativity. When there's no one dictating your schedule, no constant compromise pulling at your energy, your mind begins to open up. You find yourself trying new things, taking risks, exploring paths that you wouldn't have considered if you were stuck managing someone else's expectations. That's why so many women who live alone end up discovering hidden talents, launching businesses, traveling on a whim, or pursuing passions that once sat on the back burner. Their freedom gives them room to breathe, and in that space, possibility shows up. Of course, there will always be people who misunderstand it. They'll look at a woman living solo and assume something's missing, when in reality, what she has is something most people secretly crave. She has the ability to define success for herself. Maybe it's a quiet evening with a book. Maybe it's a flight across the world. Maybe it's building a career that lights her up. Whatever it is, it's hers. That's the freedom that matters, not the absence of responsibility, but the absence of compromise over what makes her soul come alive. And this freedom isn't just about the personal moments. It changes how she shows up in relationships too. Because when you've tasted what it feels like to live fully on your terms, you don't hand that away lightly. You don't shrink yourself for acceptance. You don't sacrifice your peace for the sake of appearances. You walk into relationships as a whole person, already complete, already confident. That kind of freedom eliminates desperation. It shifts connections from being about survival to being about choice. Freedom is more than just the absence of control from others. It's the presence of self-respect, the presence of alignment, the presence of intentional living. And when a woman creates that for herself in her own space, she's not just surviving, she's thriving in a way that no outside approval can replicate. That's the shocking truth most people miss. Freedom on your own terms isn't selfish. It's the purest form of self-respect. Strength isn't always loud. It's not always the kind that gets applause or recognition. Sometimes it's quiet, built in the day to day choices that nobody else sees. And when a woman lives alone, that quiet strength becomes part of her DNA. Stronger mental resilience doesn't come from comfort. It comes from being tested. And living solo will test you in ways you don't expect. When something breaks in the house, there's no one else to pass the problem to. When bills stack up, there's no safety net waiting to cover the gap. When anxiety hits late at night, there's no one sitting next to you to talk you down. Those moments force you to rely on yourself. They teach you to think, to problem solve, to calm your own storms. And each time you face one of those challenges and push through it, you come out the other side tougher, sharper, more capable. It's not about pretending everything is easy. It's about learning that even when it's not, you can handle it. That lesson builds resilience brick by brick. And once that foundation is laid, it's almost unshakable. Because the truth is, once you know you can get through the hard stuff alone, the presence of others becomes a gift, not a crutch. Resilience shows up in the small, unnoticed moments. It's in fixing a leaky sink at midnight because waiting for someone else isn't an option. It's in navigating career decisions without the comfort of someone else's paycheck to soften the blow. It's in choosing to face silence instead of filling it with noise just to avoid yourself. Each of these moments strengthens mental muscle in the same way physical exercise strengthens the body. Repetition builds endurance. And the fascinating part is that resilience doesn't just stay locked in her apartment. It carries over into every corner of life. At work, She's not easily rattled by setbacks because she knows how to pivot. In friendships, she becomes the steady one people lean on, not because she tries to be, but because she's learned how to stand steady in her own storms. Even in relationships, she carries herself differently because she's not terrified of being alone. She's already proven she can thrive there. That kind of resilience changes the way you show up. It changes the way people see you. Now, resilience doesn't mean hardness. It doesn't mean building walls so tall that no one can reach you. It's actually the opposite. It's knowing you can be soft without breaking. It's knowing you can let people in without fearing that their absence will destroy you. Because once you've built resilience, love becomes a choice, not a dependency. You don't need it to survive. You welcome it because you've already learned to survive. Here's the part that catches most people off guard. Resilience often looks invisible from the outside. To the world, it might just look like a woman going about her day. But inside, it's 1,000 moments of courage no one ever saw. It's pushing through fear, pushing through doubt, pushing through the weight of expectation. And that invisible strength is often more powerful than any visible show of toughness because it's not for display. It's for survival, for growth, for self-respect. So when people look at women who live alone and assume they're fragile, they couldn't be more wrong. Fragility doesn't come from solitude. Fragility comes from never having to stand on your own. Resilience is built in the quiet, in the solitude, in the moments when the only person you can depend on is yourself. And once that resilience is there, it becomes the anchor that carries her through every storm life can throw. That's the shocking truth most people miss. Solitude doesn't weaken. It forges resilience stronger than steel. For as long as most of us can remember, there's been this unspoken script about what a woman's life is supposed to look like. Graduate, get married, build a home, raise a family, and keep it all together with a smile. And if she doesn't follow that script, well, people start asking questions. They assume something must be wrong. The idea that a woman needs a man to be whole has been baked into culture for centuries, and many don't even realize how often they reinforce it. But women living alone today are quietly breaking that outdated stereotype simply by choosing a different path and doing it unapologetically. What makes this so powerful is that the rebellion isn't loud or confrontational. It's subtle. It's a woman walking into her apartment, shutting the door, and knowing the life she's building inside doesn't require external validation. She doesn't need to prove her worth by being attached to someone. Her worth exists because she exists. That simple act of living solo in a world that still questions it is an act of resistance. And more than that, it's an act of redefining what strength looks like. When people see a man living alone, it's usually framed as independence, ambition, even strength. But when they see a woman doing the same thing, it often gets twisted into pity as if she's incomplete. That double standard exposes the bias society still carries. And every time a woman chooses to live on her own terms, she chips away at that bias. She challenges people to reconsider the assumption that partnership is the only measure of wholeness. And here's the truth: stereotypes only survive when people play along with them. The moment someone refuses to fit inside the box itself starts to crack. A woman living solo is doing more than just enjoying her space. She's sending a message, whether she intends to or not. She's showing that happiness doesn't need to look like tradition, and fulfillment doesn't require someone standing next to you at every turn. Breaking stereotypes doesn't mean rejecting love or relationships altogether. It doesn't mean closing the door on partnership. It means refusing to accept that partnership is the only road to happiness. It means saying, I will walk into love whole, not broken. I will choose connection because I want it, not because I need it to define me. That shift changes the entire foundation of relationships, because once you know you're enough on your own, you never settle for less than you deserve. And let's be clear, breaking stereotypes doesn't come without pushback. People will whisper, families will question, society will label. But the stronger a woman grows in her independence, the less those labels matter. She realizes that the criticism usually says more about other people's fears than about her choices. People fear what they don't understand, and they often disguise that fear as judgment. But judgment loses its power when you stop borrowing your worth from outside voices. The ripple effect is what makes this truly shocking. When one woman breaks the mold, she gives silent permission to others to do the same. A younger woman watching from the sidelines sees a model of what's possible. A friend rethinks her own choices. A daughter grows up understanding that her life is hers to define. That's how change begins, not with grand speeches or revolutions, but with individuals quietly refusing to shrink into roles that no longer fit. And over time, those quiet choices create a new kind of normal, a world where independence isn't questioned, where solitude isn't confused with loneliness, where a woman's strength isn't measured by her proximity to a man. That's not just breaking stereotypes. That's rewriting them altogether. That's the shocking truth most people miss. Choosing your own path isn't rebellion. It's freedom. And it's the first step to breaking the chains of outdated expectations. Success and happiness are two words that get thrown around all the time. But if you really stop and think about it, most of the time they're defined for us. Success is supposed to look like a certain kind of career, a certain kind of home, a certain kind of relationship. Happiness is supposed to look like a smiling family photo on a holiday card or a hand to hold so people can say you're complete. And when a woman decides to live alone without attaching herself to those expectations, she challenges the entire definition. She begins to ask, what if success is what I decide it is? What if happiness is what I say it looks like? And that's where everything changes. Because when you're living by yourself, you don't have the constant distraction of someone else's vision for your life. You don't wake up every day negotiating what matters most between two different perspectives. You wake up with clarity, with a clean slate to build your own picture. And in that space, something remarkable happens. You discover that fulfillment isn't one size fits all. For one woman, it might mean building a business from scratch. For another, it might mean spending afternoons painting by the window. For someone else, it might simply mean peace, the kind of peace that comes when your space and your time are fully your own. What's powerful about this shift is that it takes the pressure off of chasing validation. So many people spend their lives in a race they never chose, trying to measure up to standards that don't even belong to them. But when you live alone, you learn quickly that chasing other people's approval only leaves you exhausted. And once you stop running that race, you start walking your own path. You begin to ask questions that matter. What brings me energy? What drains me? What feels meaningful to me, not to everyone else? Those questions unlock a sense of ownership over your life that no external achievement can match. And here's the beautiful part. When success is defined on your terms, happiness stops being this far off destination and becomes part of your daily routine. It's in the morning coffee you drink without rushing. It's in the freedom to plan your day without compromise. It's in the satisfaction of knowing that every choice, every win, every stumble belongs to you. That's not loneliness. That's fulfillment. And it's something many people never experience because they're too busy trying to check off boxes that someone else handed them. Now, redefining success and happiness doesn't mean living without challenges. It doesn't mean life suddenly becomes perfect, but it does mean you stop tying your sense of worth to whether you've met someone else's idea of making it. It means when you look in the mirror, you don't ask, am I enough compared to them? You ask, am I enough for me? And the answer to that question begins to shape everything else. The irony is that when you live this way, you often end up more successful by traditional standards, not because you're chasing them, but because you're no longer distracted. You're focused, intentional, and grounded in who you are. People notice that kind of confidence. Opportunities show up because you're aligned, not desperate. Relationships feel healthier because you're not trying to fill a void. You're already whole. And slowly, the world starts to see it too. The same people who once questioned why a woman was living alone start to wonder how she seems so content, so stable, so alive. That's when they realize she didn't miss out on anything. She built something most people only dream about, a life that actually feels like hers. That's a shocking truth. Most people miss real success and happiness aren't handed down by society. They're defined by the courage to choose them for yourself. So here's the truth that ties it all together. Living alone as a woman isn't a story of loneliness. It's a story of strength, of freedom, of resilience, of breaking old molds, and of creating happiness on your own terms. It's not about rejecting love or partnership. It's about refusing to believe that your value is measured by it. Every choice to stand tall in solitude sends a ripple that challenges outdated expectations and builds a new definition of what fulfillment looks like. And the shocking truth is this: a woman who lives alone without a man is not missing something. She is showing the world that she is already whole.